And now, coming to you live from Huntsville Attic Studios, it's Pop Culture Philosophers. And here are your hosts, Rockin, Robbie, Billups, and John Hammertime Holshoe.
Hey everybody, it's the Pop Culture Philosophers, coming to you live from the Huntsville Attic in beautiful Huntsville, Alabama. Tonight we're going to be talking about the sensational, the amazing, the superior Spider-Man. We're going to be talking about the movies, the comics, the cartoons, everything Spider-Man. I'm John Hammertime Holshoe. Joining me with me, as always, Rockin' Robbie Billups.
Hey, how you doing, John?
I am good. I'm excited to talk about Spider-Man, one of my favorite Marvel characters, maybe my favorite.
He's a lot of people's favorite, man. Like, a lot of people like Spider-Man. Who doesn't know Spider-Man? Even before people, like the current comic book renaissance, if you will. Even before that, people knew who Spider-Man was.
Oh yeah, he's one of the most popular, I'd say him and Batman are probably one of the two most famous comic book characters in the world.
Oh, absolutely. Like, no doubt.
Also joining us tonight is going to be Brooks Gibbs.
Yep, I'm here.
Thanks for joining us tonight. Talk about Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And with us, returning again, Mike Matthews.
Hey, everybody.
Mike the Voice Matthews.
The voice.
Or maniacal, either one.
So Spider-Man, as I said, Spider-Man. So he's a half spider, half man. And as we know the origins of Spider-Man, a spider and a man had sex and had a baby. And Spider-Man was born.
I don't think that's quite the way it worked.
Or different. Maybe he was bitten by a radioactive spider. It was actually created by Steve Ditko and Stan Lee. His first appearance is Amazing Fantasy number 15 in 1962. Awesome cover, by the way. I love that cover. What an amazing cover.
And Jack Kirby, I believe, did the cover.
Oh, it's fantastic. Spider-Man is kind of a big deal because this was a time when superheroes, you have Batman, you have Superman. These are all men. These are adults. But seriously, you've got a superhero who's a teen, and he has teen problems. He has school. He's got a crush on a girl. You know what I'm saying? He lives with his aunt and uncle, and he has to listen to them. So it was a big deal to have a teen who maybe that kids could embrace more. Of course, his first appearance in Amazing Fantasy 15, like I said, he got his first ongoing book, The Amazing Spider-Man, in March of 1963. And it's been kind of Marvel's flagship for over 50 years now. And he has one of the best rogues galleries. He really does. Next to Batman, he's got one of the best list of villains. And it goes on and on and on. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. I'm excited to talk about that. But I want to ask you guys all why you're here. Why do you love Spider-Man? You obviously love Spider-Man if you wanted to be on the podcast with us. Brooks, why do you love Spider-Man?
Well, he's definitely one of the most relatable heroes as far as his alter ego goes. Because he's just a regular guy. He's smarter than your average guy. I mean, he's very smart, but he has so many problems that he never benefits from his own intelligence. At least not until like later on. It's like everything's always stacked against him. But he's still that wisecracking guy who, while he's fighting, he's always making jokes and just pissing his villains off. You don't see a lot of heroes that really do that. Or at least not to the extent that Spider-Man does. Yeah,
or if they did it, Spider-Man did it first. Really,
yeah.
As far as the wit and the style, that's kind of a trademark
of
Spider-Man,
kind of his
for
thing.
sure.
Is what he's known for.
Robbie, why do you like Spider-Man? Why do you love Spider-Man?
I love Spider-Man because, like, a lot of what, like Brooks just said, and what you even started the show off with. Like, first of all, he is the everyman. Okay? A lot of people have Spider-Man's got relatability. Superman was like this mythical god type figure.
Yeah.
Batman is flawless. Wonder Woman is sensationally, a demigod. And you're right. And so, like, basically, Spider-Man was the first superhero with problems. That was the Marvel way. That's what separated Marvel from DC, which was the big deal at the time. And I love DC and I love their mythological characters. But Marvel's relatable characters, especially Spider-Man, he had money problems. Like, what comic book nerd does not have money problems? Because just the idea that you are spending money on comic books, it like leads to the idea that you may have money problems, right? Because you're spending money on 20-page pamphlets. You're spending $5 for or whatever, right? But people related to Spider-Man. He had love problems. He had problems with relationships. He had problems with his friends. His friends had problems with drugs. He had problems with depression. He's a very depressed, like... He beats himself up, and I think he's very relatable because of that. And he's also funny. he uses humor as a defense mechanism, which is obviously something that happens a lot today. And it's just, he's so relatable and he's amazing. And seriously, he never stops. He never gives up. He's always striving to be the hero, even though his life's not the greatest. And that's something to aspire to. But at the same time, it can be damaging because he is a self-defeating person. He's a very negative-minded person. If you really look at the character of Peter Parker, that's why he calls it the Parker luck. He expects things to go bad, and of course they do.
Speaking of self-defeating characters, Mike, why do you love Spider-Man?
Because he's good.
All right, moving on. No, I'm kidding. Go into that a little more detail if you could.
Everybody can relate to him. He's a teen. It's no matter what point in time of your life, you can relate to whatever the story really is. I mean, we kind of hit on everything. The problem with going last, you got to be more original.
Yeah, he's relatable. He's a teen. He has the same problems you and I have, except at the end of the day, he has to fight a giant lizard.
He's not really a teen anymore.
Well, he's grown up. He's now in his, late 20s, early 30s, and has been for 40 years.
Yeah.
So I agree on that. I was actually technically going last, I guess, and I can't add any more of what you guys added, especially his wit. I think that's the biggest thing that stands out is, like Brooks said, you don't get that with Batman. Occasionally you get somebody making a smart remark or something funny, but not to the extent that Spider-Man does. And that's one of the things that I think stood out early on compared to other characters. Not so much the relatable, because he was, but I didn't see him as that. I saw him as his humor. Calling people names and just having fun with being Spider-Man. So as I talked earlier in the show, we were talking about his rogues gallery. He's got some of the best villains. He really has fantastic villains. I was actually trying to list them all so we can talk about them all, and it would take me like 8 pages. He's got so many great villains, and even villains like Hobgoblin and the other Hobgoblin, and then Demi-Goblin and Green Goblin and all these first off, there's 84 goblins, I think. Yeah. But on top of that, there's so many more than that. Let's start with Brooks, other than me going on about the goblins. Spider-Man villains. What do you think? What do you like?
I like Dr. Octopus probably is my favorite Spider-Man villain.
Who was Spider-Man at some point in time.
After reading Superior Spider-Man is when I decided that, because he's so arrogant. He's such an asshole. He's like a miniature Doctor Doom in a way, except he has the 4 arms instead of the whole armor. But Octavius, he just can't imagine himself being wrong about anything. So he always thinks, he's so smart, so why shouldn't he be able to beat Spider-Man? But every time Spider-Man still beats him.
Do you relate to Octavius that way because you feel like you're always right? You can't admit to being wrong?
Or because you have so many arms?
Yes.
Please. As if.
Robbie, is there a particular villain you love or want to talk about? He's got so many great villains.
Yeah, I mean, I really, really grew up reading Spider-Man comics in the 80s and the early 90s. So, obviously, I love Carnage. Carnage is amazing. Shouts out to Tad. Tad would be happy that someone's mentioning Carnage. Carnage is amazing and scary.
So
it's like Billy. The Joker if he got the symbiote, right?
Oh, yeah.
And I love Venom. Anybody that knows me just knows I love Venom. But number 1, it's Norman Osborn. It's the Green Goblin. I think he's one of the best villains for a hero, period. And if Spider-Man is one of the best heroes, he's obviously got one of the best villains, and it is Norman Osborn. It is the Green Goblin. He's crazy. He's manipulative. He's very much like Lex Luthor, but if Lex Luthor all the time dressed up like a Girl Scout and got on a glider and just drove around. You know what I'm saying?
He's like a mentally deranged Lex Luthor.
Yes, exactly. And Luthor is that way. And a lot of the time, he's kind of played a little bit more Machiavellian, right? But Norman Osborn's got so many layers. And all these villains I mentioned, those 3 are super scary to Peter's life. They know who he is, except for Carnage. And Venom doesn't anymore. Neither does Norman actually anymore, but whatever. But Norman Osborn is the greatest. Absolutely. Norman Willem Dafoe Osborn.
I think that Norman Osborn particularly took off after Siege, when he was actually given, or after Secret Invasion. Actually.
Okay, yeah. Well, I'll give you that. And notice and remember that Norman Osborn appeared in the comic book before, like at the same time around Goblin, and you didn't know who he was. And somewhere around like issue 39 or 40, they revealed it for the first time. And I love Stan Lee's titles for some of his comics, like How Green Was My Goblin is the name of one of those comics, right? And that's a great story. And then the death of Gwen Stacy, he's involved. And of course he dies. But when he came back at the end of the Clone Saga, from that point on, he became very, very much like a Luthor type character. And I love him so much. But Thunderbolts, the Siege stuff, all that stuff was amazing. Dark Reign. Norman Osborn is an amazing character, not just for Spider-Man, but for the Marvel Universe.
Mike Matthews.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Spider-Man villains. Who do you like? Who do you want to talk about? Because he's got, again, a great gallery. I'd think one of the best, probably the best in Marvel, I would say.
Absolutely.
This one gets dumped on a little, not really. I was going to say Mysterio.
Mysterio.
That's a done right. That character is great.
He made Wolverine kill all the other X-Men.
Yeah, it's just like just the stuff that he's done to other characters, and then finally got to do Spider-Man. It's just.
And he found his way into the Ultimate Universe.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the best Mysterio stories are all in, Wolverine comics and Daredevil comics. I mean...
Yeah, but he's still...
But Mysterio's cool.
But he's still a great... But he finally got the Ultimate Spider-Man story.
I always loved the idea, though, that he was like a special effects guy in Hollywood. And that he did everything just using mirrors and smoke. Smoke and mirrors, I guess, is the more common way to say that.
Then, he's like Job from Arrested Development, but evil.
It's an illusion, Spider-Man.
I sunk the boat.
It's not a trick, Spider-Man.
I made it disappear.
It's an illusion.
And he wears that fishbowl on his head?
I think so.
Yes. Is that what that is?
Yeah, something like that.
I do like Mysterio. You're right, though, when we're talking about Mysterio, there's a lot of great villains that have crossed over to Punisher and Daredevil. I mean, you look at Kingpin.
Kingpin initially.
Kingpin's one of those, and there's some great ones that are shared.
I like the Jackal. I like Craven.
Craven's pretty awesome.
Electro's another one of those that
Electro can be cool. Yeah,
can be cool.
When I was growing up reading comics for the first time at like 5 or 6 years age, I loved Electro because I loved his costume for some ridiculous reason.
I forgot about it and it was on the tip of my tongue and just remembered it. The Lizard.
The Lizard's a good one, yeah.
Because it's like it's my friend, but
Tombstone.
It's also a bad
Tombstone's
guy.
a great one.
It's not the same relationship.
I love Tombstone though.
It's a relationship that Peter and Kirk Connors have.
Tombstone doesn't have as much of an impact as someone like, say, Eddie Brock, Venom, or Goblin, or Craven, but Chameleon can be a good one. There's a lot of good ones. Like, seriously, he has one of the best. Like, Batman's got probably the best. Superman's got a great one. Fantastic Four has an amazing rogues gallery, but Spider-Man, X-Men as well, but like Spider-Man is up there, dude. Like Octavius, Lizard, the Sinister Six,
Rhino.
Like, why did nobody cheat and say my favorite villains are the Sinister Six?
Yeah, just cheat, pick all. Yeah.
What about you, John? What do you say?
Yeah, like you said, you got the different Green Goblins, Hobgoblin, Demi-Goblin. I think there was one called Goblin.
Yes. Pink Goblin.
But
Blue
probably
Goblin.
my favorite you've already mentioned is Venom.
Goblin.
I think Venom is just awesome. I mean, he's got the symbiote suit, and then of course you got Carnage came from that, and Venom's just a badass, and he just looks cool. I mean, he's probably the coolest looking of the bad guys, of the villains. I would say though that in my mind, the two that stand out the most, or you've already mentioned Dr. Octopus and Green Goblin, I think are the definitive bad guys for him. But probably because of Secret Wars as a kid, I had the Dr. Octopus figure, and then from the comics, I always thought that the Green Goblin, to me, was the ultimate bad guy for him. And I guess he kind of is. A
lot of the time that we were growing up, the Goblin was already dead. And Octavius was, like, the big one. Like, the Wedding issue, for instance. Like, there's a lot of popular... And I really liked it when Octavius started wearing the white suit. Do you remember that era?
Yeah.
Like, I really liked that for some reason. I just thought it was pen.
Now, was Harry Green Goblin when we were kids?
He was, but it was kind of a brief span.
Okay.
But he was, yes.
Okay, because I remember there being a Green Goblin. I kind of blurs together.
We had more of the Hobgoblin than we had the Green Goblin.
Jeez, no one picked Shocker?
And then
shocked.
Shocker.
I'm sure.
Hey, no Hydro Man, no
No
Sandman.
one picked Rocket Racer or whatever.
Yeah.
So there's also a great supporting cast. You have Gwen Stacy. You have Captain Stacy. You have all the other Spider-Men. You have Uncle Ben, Aunt May. For a while there when he was Aunt Ben after the operation. That didn't happen. I don't know. There's a lot of Spider-Man comics. It could happen.
It could. Yeah.
It's feasible in the Spider world. So I'm gonna start with you, Brooks. Some of your favorite supporting cast.
Well, one that I really like is one that's actually pretty recent. Hold on a second.
Thank you. Thank you for putting the ice out.
But Anna Maria, was it Marconi? I think from the current Spider-Man.
Well, let me hear the music in it. Marconi.
But yeah, she was introduced in the Superior Spider-Man run as like a love interest for Octavius Spider-Man, and she's stuck around even after Peter's come back, and he's kind of put her in charge of things. I always liked the character. I thought it was interesting, that she was a person that she was short. She was very small, but she was really smart, and that would attract Octavius, like her brilliance instead of her physical appearance. And I think she's pretty funny, and the way she knows who Peter is, and she keeps the secret despite him not being the same man she knew. I think it's pretty cool.
It's a great character created by Dan Slott, yeah.
Hey, Octavius did have a relationship with Aunt May at one time.
That is true.
Yeah, he did.
Who has
Did they
it?
almost get married?
Yeah.
Oh, that's so weird. That's so weird. Robbie, supporting cast members you want to talk about, stand out in your mind?
The number one is J. Jonah Jameson.
Oh, give me pictures of
Yeah,
Spider-Man.
he's just so great, and they've actually added tons of depth to that character over the years. Like a lot of stuff. There's this great run in the late 90s when Norman is in control of the Daily Bugle, and Jonah keeps a gun in his desk, and it's like, is it for himself or is it for Norman? And it's just J. Jonah Jameson. There's some really good stories involving him, and he's always fun. I love Robbie Robertson because he's the calming influence to J. Jonah Jameson in the Daily Bugle. So those ones for sure, and of course Human Torch. I'll go ahead and say Human Torch. Johnny Storm's a big supporting character because he and Spider-Man like to meet up all the time, and like the Statue of Liberty, they have that discussion. So I'm going to go with those ones. I really like those, and I've always been a big fan of Harry Osborn, and I love the idea that the rich kid has problems too, and his best friend is the nerd who doesn't have any other friends. I just love that dynamic, and I thought
and his dad just happens to be the arch villain.
Yes, and it messes him up, and I love James Franco's performance in those movies by Sam Raimi.
Matthews, any supporting cast members?
I was going to say the Human Torch because it's an important one. Also, you can.
But I stole it.
Yeah, you did.
Of course, Robbie's going to figure out a way to stick the Fantastic Four in there somehow.
Well, I was going to say
Well,
also.
Mike actually earlier, he was like, well, Fantastic Four can count as a supporting, and I was like, I'm going to steal that.
Hey, I can't steal my top 5 though. No, him and Bim Grimm, and even Reed Richards. It's good. I mean, it's good stuff. Also, Daredevil, Matt Murdock. They have a solid relationship, and they don't get along and see eye to eye. But Frank Castle, the Punisher, also, I'm going to kill you, but no, I'm slowly going to kind of work with you if I have to.
I agree with everybody, and in addition to that, like I said earlier, Captain Stacy I think was an important one. He was like a dad character to Peter when he didn't have a father, because obviously he had lost Ben. He really didn't have a father to look up to, and I'm surprised he didn't start idolizing or look up to and I think he does kind of actually look up to Norman, to be honest with you, initially. But otherwise it would be like, looking up to Dr. Octopus or somebody. But yeah, I was going to say Captain Stacy. Speaking of other supporting cast or other characters, there's more than just Peter Parker. I mean, we're talking about Peter, but there's been multiple Spider-Mans, right? We got, I'm going to throw some out here. You guys can jump in. I got Ben Reilly. Is that his name?
Yeah.
Yes.
And then you've got Miles. Is it Morales? How do you say his last name?
Morales.
Miles Morales. And I'm probably missing a bunch more. There's a bunch. There's been
Miguel O'Hara.
okay. There's been
Spider-Man 2099.
Kane.
oh yeah, that
Kane.
Kane Parker.
Kane Parker.
What was the?
How about Gwen Stacy, Spider-Woman?
Oh yeah.
yeah.
What was the?
Wasn't there another Spider-Woman though?
What was the twin?
Jessica Drew.
What was his twin? The clone in Ultimates. What was her name? She wore the red suit.
Oh, she became Jessica.
Yeah.
Yeah, she became Jessica Drew, the Spider-Woman, the ultimate Spider-Woman. Yeah, I love Ben Reilly, especially when he was Scarlet Spider. In
Oh
the
yeah, had the
90s.
red with the
Absolutely love that. A lot of people like 2099. He's cool, but I really like Ben Reilly as Spider-Man. I thought he was a great other Spider-Man, and when he was Scarlet Spider, and that was cool. And then when he became Spider-Man, that was cool too. And what they've done with the character lately, especially if you watch my weekly comic book review on YouTube, nice plug there, right? Seriously, I hate what they've done with the character Ben Reilly. But he's my favorite other Spider-Man, though I do love and adore and cherish Miles Morales. I think he's amazing, a great character, and a great
Now, is
addition
Miles
to the
Ultimate?
Marvel Universe. No, the Ultimate Universe kind of almost got folded into the Marvel Universe, and he is in the typical Marvel Universe now, fighting alongside Peter Parker and the other Avengers and whatnot.
Okay. Was there any other Spider-Man that we're missing, Brooks?
Or what's your favorites?
Or do you have one that stands out you want to talk about besides Peter Parker?
I like Jessica Drew pretty well. Spider-Woman. She's kind of...
Is she with the dark hair, had the red
yeah,
costume?
she's the dark-haired Spider-Woman, not the red-haired one. But yeah, I always thought she was pretty interesting on her whole secret agent, and she's kind of got the attitude, she's kind of smart-ass like Spider-Man is. Not quite to the extent of Spider-Man, but, she seems more like in tune with Spider-Man. Like when they team up in the Avengers, they seem to, kind of get along better than other characters would.
Yeah, and they have you're right, and they probably have the same ideas. Like, well, let's approach it this way. So yeah, you're saying, so that's the red costume she had the black hair, dark hair.
And then she has like the yellow hourglass.
Yeah, and who had and then there was the one that had almost a Venom costume.
Julia Carpenter.
Julia. There's some great costumes too. So let's talk about
Who's
the
the new
awesome
Venom?
costumes. Because you got those costumes. You mentioned earlier, Ben. I love the Scarlet Spider costume, by the way. The red with the blue hoodie
The
thing.
hoodie, yeah.
Dude, I love
it's
that.
dumb, but I loved it.
And then Peter's had some alternate costumes, some awesome costumes. One that we were talking about earlier was off the air. All the good stuff's off the air. No, I was talking about, is it the one that Tony gives him?
The
Iron
Iron
Spider.
Spider.
The Iron Spider. I always liked that. The gold and the red. I always thought that was a really cool costume. And it almost reminds me less of spider arms and more of almost like Dr. Octopus's. Is that foreshadowing?
Yeah, it may be a little bit, yeah, for sure.
So Robbie, is there costumes you want to talk about? What's the one you like, the silver one?
I love the spider armor from
No.
Web of Spider-Man 100. Remember the silver
Yeah.
and black armor?
How do you get that costume? I remember the cover.
He
How do you
just
get the
made it. He
costume?
had to make it because of the villain he was fighting. I don't remember, but it was a green foil cover. It was super cool.
Yeah, I remember the cover.
I like that. I think Miles has a really good Spider-Man costume. I think his Spider-Man costume is better than Spider-Man's.
Yeah.
I think Ben Reilly's costume when he was Spider-Man was better than Peter Parker's costume.
Now, the Spider-Man 2099 costume was pretty cool. Is that gone? Is the 2099
He's
universe?
got a new costume now that's actually pretty cool as well. Spider-Gwen's got an amazing costume, to be honest.
It sure is the white with the hoodie thing.
Yeah, with the pink highlights and whatnot. So, yeah, but overall, I love that spider armor, but you can't beat the black costume, man. The black costume
from Secret Wars,
Yeah,
when it first
absolutely.
introduced. Dude, I love that costume. That's my favorite by far.
I haven't spoken on this topic yet, so I'm going to jump in and say the Future Foundation costume.
Oh, yeah, the white
which
with
one's
a
that?
little bit of black. Yeah.
The white with a little bit of black. Also, we really forgot to say a lot about Silk. So, in the Spider-Man characters, supporting cast. So, I know some people will get mad if we don't. And what else? That neon color. Remember that one?
Like the Tron looking one from Big Time?
Yeah.
I don't
that
remember
was good
this
stuff.
that costume at all.
Yeah. It's
It
great.
It was cool.
Well, it's because
It
you've
sounds
never read
terrible.
a Dan Slott Spider-Man comic book.
I think I have.
Also, the House of M Spider-Man suit was pretty cool, too.
Eh.
I mean...
The movies actually have done a pretty good job with the costumes.
Yeah, they have.
It was one of those things that, and we discussed it in the Spider-Man movie review, is that people are like, when you did the X-Men, when you did Batman, you changed the costume dramatically. Surely you can't do Spider-Man. He's got this bright red and blue, the webs, kind of corny almost. You can't do that live action. Well, apparently you can, and it rocks. The live action ones have, and so far in the Spider-Man films, the three we've seen, and the Amazing Spider-Man films, love the costume. The new costume is great too, with, forget the kid's name.
Todd Holland.
Todd Holland. What? Tom Holland.
Tom Holland. Todd Holland? Something.
Yeah. Yeah, he's the heir. I remember he's the heir to the heir to the Netherlands. That's what his.
Yes.
So when we come back, we'll be talking about Spider-Man on film and Spider-Man on TV. Thanks for joining us, and we'll be right back.
Hey everybody, Rockin' Robbie here. I want to talk to you real quick about our YouTube channel. That's right, you got to get on YouTube and check out Pop Culture Philosophers and give us a good subscribe. That's right, we got tons of content there for you. Weekly comic book reviews and other comic book news and things like that. Movie reviews and movie discussions and updates and stuff like that. Toy reviews and toy unboxings, both new toys and retro toys. Lots of fun, exciting stuff, including the exclusive to YouTube podcast, Rockin' with Rockin' Robbie. Tons of stuff going on at the Pop Culture Philosophers YouTube channel, including our 500 subscriber celebration going on right now. We got a contest we are announcing. Check it out. You might be able to win a Blu-ray player and Rogue One, a Star Wars story, on Blu-ray. So be sure to check that out on YouTube, Pop Culture Philosophers.
Welcome back to Pop Culture Philosophers. We're talking about Spider-Man. Joining with me is Brooks Gibbs,
Yep.
Rockin' Robbie Billups,
That's right.
Mike Matthews,
Yo, yo.
the voice Matthews, and of course I'm John Hammertime Holshoe. We're talking about Spider-Man before. We're going to continue our Spider-Man talk. We're going to talk about Spider-Man movies. Spider-Man is one of those things that I was actually reading. Well, I wasn't reading. I went to a Chris Claremont panel. So did Robbie. He was talking about work on the X-Men film. And that member James Cameron was aboard, and then James Cameron jumped ship at the idea of doing a Spider-Man film. Apparently, all these directors were all hot and bothered about doing a Spider-Man film. So the idea of a Spider-Man film was in the running for a while.
Yes.
Till probably it finally came out, and it was Sam Raimi, our buddy Sam Raimi, finally brought Spider-Man to the big screen.
Friend
in,
of the show.
2002 with Tobey Maguire.
Yeah.
And I think the franchise, I think those three films, for the most part, three falters a little bit. Fantastic trilogy, actually. So what do you think of the Spider films? I'm going to start with Brooks. What do you think of Spider-Man on the big screen? First off, have you seen all these movies on the big screen?
Yes, I have.
How do you like them?
Well, I haven't seen Amazing Spider-Man 2.
Okay, we just see the Amazing Spider-Man with Andrew Garfield.
Yeah.
How do you rank them? How do you like them?
Well, 2 is my favorite.
I think
Spider-Man 2.
everybody's going to say that. I'd be hard pressed to find somebody to find Spider-Man 2 not be the best one. It's a fantastic film.
Well, it's tough between 2 and the first one, but I like 2 a little bit better than Spider-Man. Well, it obviously had Dr. Octopus.
Yeah, you're a Dr. Octopus fan. We've discussed.
I liked the way they handled Dr. Octopus in that movie. That he was, a scientist. He wasn't a bad guy. He wasn't insane. It was the circumstances that drove him to, do this crazy villain plan. But it wasn't just because he was crazy. He had he had a reason. And in the end, he kind of redeemed himself, too.
Precious Tritium.
Yeah.
I forget the name of the actor that played
Precious Tritium.
Alfred Molina.
He does such a great job. That movie really is fantastic. And they did a great job with Dr. Octopus on the big screen. I mean, they had the tentacles and everything. I almost said testicles. They had the tentacles and everything. I think it was awesome. I don't know about the big jacket. Does he wear a big jacket?
Yeah, he does.
He does.
Okay, I don't remember the jacket. I remember him.
Yeah, and he started wearing it in the comic book, too.
Capes are lame. Trench coats are cool.
So what do you think about? You did like Garfield though in the film, right? And Amazing Spider-Man.
I liked him as Spider-Man. And the way I see it is like if they'd have combined like certain aspects of Amazing Spider-Man with like the original Spider-Man films, you would have had the perfect Spider-Man movie. Because the Raimi Spider-Man movies are really good and fun, but they're mostly about Peter Parker. And the Spider-Man parts, he doesn't seem to be the Spider-Man from the comics. He's not quipping like he usually does in the comics. And they did that a lot more in Amazing Spider-Man. They made him more of a smartass while he was fighting.
They brought that wit that we know.
I didn't think the story in Amazing Spider-Man was as good as any of the Raimi films.
I agree with you there. Yeah, they tried to capture the wit. They tried to make Spider-Man more Spider-Man, more Peter.
Yeah.
And in doing so, but you're right. I think the story suffered Same thing for Amazing Spider-Man 2. You didn't see it. It wasn't as good as 1, in my opinion. And then I still think the Raimi trilogy is a better overall. And I think Mark Webb, who directed those 2 films, only got the job because his last name was Webb. They're like, who do we need? This guy, fuck it. He's destined to be Spider-Man director.
The web of Spider-Man.
Mike Matthews, what do you think of the Spider-Man films?
Well, I had Sam Raimi over the other day. We had lunch, late lunch.
What kind of lunch? What'd you guys eat?
I just cooked, just some stuff around the house.
No, I want details.
Avocado and toast.
If it happened, I want fucking details.
It's kind of like what you have at brunch, but like at 2:00 in the afternoon. So it's
That's a late fucking lunch.
Yeah, well, I mean,
That's a late fucking brunch.
I mean, he came,
That doesn't work at all for brunch.
he came all the way out. It's kind of a stop by. He's a busy man. So, but we talked about a lot of stuff, his future projects. We didn't talk a lot about Spider-Man, but we did talk about the suit from the first
suit is
Spider-Man.
fantastic.
It's the classic suit. There's no better movie suit. Everybody will yell at me for this, but me and Sam both agreed that it was like, okay, this suit right here, it's classic, iconic. The lines are sharp, the lines are crisp. It's golden.
What are the odds that after this podcast we get sued by Sam Raimi's people?
I don't know these guys.
Well, nobody fact checks this shit. It was a fantastic costume. That was one of, again, I mentioned that earlier, when we talk about costumes, they hit it out of the park. And first I was like, well, this is all CG. But no, you see Toby take his mask off. I mean, he's wearing this fucking costume, man. They had the eyes done right. I mean, they even had the white eyes where they do like a silver lens or whatever, but it works, man. It works fantastically well. What do you think about the Superman? Shit. We'll just edit this all out. What do you think of the Spider-Man films? We just watched Spider-Man, the 2002 film recently, actually.
Yeah, we did. I love the Spider-Man films. I love the Sam Raimi ones. Even for the most part, Spider-Man 3, it's not the greatest, but it's got some parts in it
some
that
great parts.
I really like.
Overall, it's got some issues, but it's not a bad film.
It is a bad film, but
I tried to say
there are parts of it that I do like.
Is your favorite 2?
No, my favorite is the first one.
Oh, really?
Yes. Because it's got Norman Willem Dafoe Osborn in it.
Yeah, and you love the Green Goblin.
I was going to say that, but I didn't want to steal your
You guys
thunder.
are you guys
Thank
are
you.
both biased, I think, to your favorite villains.
And it has Chris Evans as the Human Torch.
Wait a minute.
Oh,
What?
wait, no. Anyway, no, I think the first one is the best one. I think the next best one is 2. The next best one is 3. And then Amazing Spider-Man. I don't like the Amazing Spider-Man.
They're going downhill.
Yes.
For a while.
Yes. And I am excited for Homecoming, for sure. But the first one is still the best one to me. I like the second one, but I don't like how they try too hard to redeem Octavius in the second one. I like a villain just to be a villain or crazy. Like Willem Dafoe talking to himself in the mirror, So, I don't know. I like the first one. I think Tobey Maguire did a great job. I do think that they handled the wit of Spider-Man a lot better in the ones with Garfield, for sure. But how did the Lizard get all that lab equipment into the sewer? How does it work? Where's the power supply? A lot of that stuff just doesn't make sense to me.
Comic books,
I
man.
just don't like it. But I love the Sam Raimi ones. And even the Spider-Man 3's got some redeeming qualities, including I love New Goblin. I love the snowboarding Green Goblin, Harry Osborn. I love it. So I really like the Raimi ones over the Webb ones, and Spider-Man 1 over all of them.
Sandman was awesome in 3.
Yeah.
Sandman was awesome. There's okay. I said it was not a bad film, but it's not a good film. But there's some good parts.
Take that out.
That and I didn't like their take on Venom or what should have been Venom or whatever you want to call it. But it had some good parts. I think the problem with Amazing Spider-Man is my complaint. I shouldn't say the problem. It's got a couple problems. I do think Garfield does a fantastic job, and
He's incredibly selfish in all those movies, though. He never learns responsibility.
Emma
Stone, yeah.
does a good job as Gwen Stacy. And I was kind of pissed off that I'm like, oh, they're going to go with practical effects for a lizard, so I understand his look. And like, no, this is all going to be CG. I'm like, why can't he look like a goddamn lizard? Why can't he look like a lizard from the comics? Why did they change it so dramatically? Just because. Shits and gigs. The art director of these films gets always like, we know better than the comic people. This is my take on them.
Sometimes they do.
It looks like a Goomba from Mario Brothers.
He does. From the movie.
Yeah, the movie Goomba. But I do enjoy the films. Yeah, I think it's been downhill. I do look forward to the new one, Homecoming. Not totally sold on the title. Trailer looks good. Dude, Michael Keaton as Vulture. How awesome is that going to be?
Yeah, hopefully a lot.
We could probably just do a Michael Keaton podcast. That's how awesome Michael Keaton is.
I'm sure one day we probably will if you have anything to do with it.
Yes. Yes, we will. So besides the big screen, he's been on TV a lot. Besides the animated stuff, which I adore, the 90s cartoon, there was the live action show in the 70s. So he's been on the small screen a lot more than he's been on the big screen, that's for sure. And that's probably where I first introduced to Spider-Man, actually.
That's probably why so many people know Spider-Man.
Yeah,
There's always a Spider-Man cartoon or a TV show.
The 70s show introduced me to him, and he had, I think they were flower sifters for eyes. That's what they look like. What a terrible costume. And what terrible special effects, but I think their budget, even at the time, was like $12, and there was no CG at the time.
I used to watch that on the Sci-Fi channel. It was so awesome.
He had the motorcycle.
Yeah, he did have a motorcycle. So the small screen. Brooks, did you watch Spider-Man on the TV?
Well, yeah. I mean,
Did they call it the TV? Is that what the kids call it these days? The TV.
The boob tube.
The boob tube.
whatevs, bro. But yeah, I did see Spider-Man actually from TV is more what I knew Spider-Man from before the comics, really. Especially the animated series that came out, in the 90s, around the same time that the X-Men series came out.
Yeah, that's a great series, by the way.
Yeah, it's
Fox Kids.
Spider-Man.
Yeah, and they had the crossover with the X-Men. It was pretty cool. But actually, my favorite, I think, Spider-Man television appearance was in the Avengers: Earth's Mightiest Heroes cartoon. Where they had 2 episodes with Spider-Man. And one was like Along Came a Spider, where he's traveling with Captain America, who's been like it's after they did a secret invasion arc. So one of the Skrulls pretended to be Captain America and ruined his reputation. So Spider-Man's working alongside Captain America, and it was a really good episode. It was a really good show. And then there's another one called The New Avengers, where all the Avengers get defeated by Kang, and Spider-Man has to team up with the Thing, Wolverine, and Luke Cage and Iron Fist to save the Avengers. Yeah, I think out of all the Spider-Man's TV stuff, those are probably my favorites.
Who is it? Is it Joe Perry or Steve Perry from Aerosmith?
Joe Perry.
Joe Perry. He's the one that wrote that '90s animated Spider-Man thing.
Really?
Yeah.
Did you watch the 90s show then?
Yeah, I did.
What'd you think of it?
I liked it.
I think it was one of the best takes on Spider-Man.
What
I didn't see the Avengers one you're talking about. What year is that from, the show you're talking about? Is that more recent?
Yeah, it was not too long ago, maybe 2010, somewhere around there.
Yeah, no, I feel we haven't talked about it, and I don't think I'm the old man of the room. But Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends is what I actually grew up on watching with him.
Is that early 80s, late 70s?
Yeah, that's him, and then the Incredible
the
Hulk
80s,
afterwards. Yeah. It was Firestorm and Iceman. They all Firestar.
Yeah, not Firestorm.
They all lived in a house together and were like
They're
roommates.
all in the Justice League, all right.
So, and it was a fun. It was my Saturday morning Spider-Man. So
Now, is this the one that they didn't draw all the webs? Or is that the one from the 60s? There was a cartoon where they, we're not drawing these fucking webs.
That was the 60s, man.
That was the 60s. Because he's been around. I mean, Spider-Man came out in the comics in the 60s, and they had cartoons in the 60s. I mean, Spider-Man took off so quick, the popularity of the comic, and so they quickly got a cartoon show. I mean, I think that's one of the early ones that, bam, you know what I'm saying, bringing that to the Saturday morning. So that was the 60s, 70s, 80s. I think every decade he's had a cartoon of some sort. And of course, yeah, like you said, the live action show. But besides the live action show that was in the 70s, that we all probably remember with the, like I said, the flower sifters for eyes, and not a lot of Spider-Man fighting. I don't know. It was just some of the effects were weak. But what do you expect for the budget and the era? But wasn't there a Japanese show
Spider-Man?
Power Rangers type show, Robbie?
Yeah, man. It was a tokusatsu, man. And he had a giant mech. He had a giant robot.
Did he have a motorcycle?
I know he had a car.
Okay, maybe that's what I was
kind of
thinking.
car or something. But that's a wild show.
Now, is that pre-Power Rangers?
I think it is pre-Super Sentai, for sure.
So he's got a big mech.
I think it's actually the first Japanese superhero TV show where the person calls on a giant robot that they pilot.
So the people that made this show, have they not read the comic at all?
I think the people that actually made the show are the same. I think it's the same company. I'm pretty sure that went on to do Super Sentai and Kamen Rider and whatnot. So that's pretty cool. And that's a fun one. And I do remember the 70s one. Like I said, used to watch it on Sci-Fi Network. And I really do like the cartoons. When in the 90s, I like the 90s one, but I feel like it's not the greatest, honestly. Like, I do like the one from the 60s, as cheesy as that is. The one from the 90s is fun, but like the thing that really gets old about that one is that eventually every season becomes like one giant story. So if you're just watching it randomly coming on like Disney XD or whatever, it's like Sins of the Father Part 18. What?
What,
Are
the
you
one
serious?
from the 90s?
Yeah.
X-Men did the same thing. X-Men is just as guilty.
But not as long as the Spider-Man ones, I promise you. But anyway, there is a Spider-Man cartoon from the early 80s that was just called Spider-Man. And that one's really good. I watched that one like crazy, I remember. But my favorite is Spectacular Spider-Man.
Oh, yes. That's a good one.
It was on the WB or CW or whatever. It was the Spectacular Spider-Man, Spectacular.
What was the one that was on MTV?
Spider-Man, the animated series. That was
Is that
that
Neil Patrick
one-
Harris?
Neil Patrick Harris and
Yeah.
Lisa Loeb. That was a decent one. They were trying to do some different things with the animation, but a Spectacular Spider-Man is the perfect blend of the classic Lee Ditko Ramita Spider-Man mixed with Ultimate Spider-Man, and it was great. So good.
I actually like Ultimate Spider-Man, the Ultimate Spider-Man cartoon a lot, too.
It's really goofy and funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. The Doom episode in particular,
Yeah.
that first one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the Ultimate Spider-Man's more recent, right? 2012 or something like that. It came out in the last... Yeah, I've heard it was fantastic. I
Came
haven't
out
actually
slightly
seen
before
Ultimate.
Avengers Assemble.
Yeah, I do remember the MTV one. I remember when it came out, I'm like, first off, MTV is going to have a Spider-Man show. Secondly, it was pretty amazing when I watched it. Now you
Amazing?
watch it, and it's rough to watch. I forgot that is Lisa Loeb is Mary Jane.
As Mary Jane, yeah.
So, good for her. At least she got somewhere. Fuck the music. You need to be Mary Jane.
You say
It's weird that she always said that in the show.
only hear
Peter,
what I want.
you say. She just goes in a song every time. Yeah, great animated. If you haven't checked those out, definitely check them out. And Disney XD not only has the new stuff, but they rerun a bunch of stuff. So you have that. You probably do. If you have cable, you probably... When I had cable, I didn't even know I had something called Disney XD. And there's a bunch of great Avengers cartoons on there.
Yeah, there's a new
Bunch of
one.
great
There's a new Spider-Man one coming out this fall, I believe.
Do you know what it's called?
Spider-Man some shit.
I hope it's called Spider-Man some shit. Like, how did this get past the censors?
If it was a comic book, it would be Some Shit Spider-Man.
Superior shit. We'll come back with more terrible ideas. No, actually, we're going to come back with some social media, I think. We're going to do our top 5, our favorite Spider-Man story arcs. And we're going to ask the people at home, the people on the social media, what their favorite story arcs are. Right, Robbie?
Yes,
As soon as we come back.
As soon as we come back.
So we appreciate you tuning in to Pop Culture Philosophers. We'll be right back. Talk about more Spider-Man.
After these messages, we'll be right back.
Whoop.
Hey everybody, it's Rockin' Robbie here. I am thrilled to announce another all-new episode of Rockin' with Rockin' Robbie is about to hit exclusive to YouTube. This time we're talking about lies and fish. It's going to be super, super fun. I am there, Hammertime Holshoe, Justified Justin, and Jumpin' and Jivin' James discussing lies and fish. A nice mixture of subjects including Charlie the Tuna and President Nixon. Of course, you hear both of those subjects in the same podcast when you're talking about lies and fish. That's Rockin' with Rockin' Robbie, exclusive only to the Pop Culture Philosophers YouTube channel.
Welcome back to Pop Culture Philosophers. We're talking about Spider-Man. And Robbie, I think you went on the social media, on the face tweets or whatever the fuck it's called, and you almost got away without swearing the whole episode. And
No, you've already sweared.
Oh, shit.
A lot.
And I think you were asking people what their favorite Spider-Man storylines were.
Yeah, we're about to get in our top 5 favorite Spider-Man stories in the comic books, and so we asked everybody on social media, fans of the show, what are your favorite Spider-Man comic book / storylines? This is what we got. Scott Green said, Web of Spider-Man number 100. Specifically, he said the one where he gets the silver and black armor.
Oh, the one that we talked about earlier.
Lance Allen from Dan's Panda Comics said Superior Spider-Man. Mike Billups, my cousin, what up, cuzzo, said Maximum Carnage. Jeff Shirley said Kraven's Last Hunt. Michael Ingebrigt said all that opening stuff in Web of Spider-Man right after he gets like the alien costume and all that stuff. Fantastic. Web of Spider-Man #1. That's the bell tower scene. Amazing stuff. Chris Lowry said Civil War Spider-Man. Alan Foster said the final chapter, The Kid Who Collects Spider-Man, Nothing Stops the Juggernaut, and The Death of Jean DeWolf. Those are seriously some of the absolute greatest Spider-Man stories of all time.
Oh, yeah. I agree. There's some great ones in there.
Timothy Warren said The Death of Gwen Stacy. Mike Finley said that the issue where he holds up the Daily Bugle, which is from the late 90s, if I remember correctly, the first Moreland arc by J. Michael Straczynski, and Identity Crisis, the one where he had to split his identity into 4 different characters. That was a really good stuff that led to Slingers. Yeah, Ricochet, Prodigy. Hornet, Prodigy, and Dusk. Amazing stuff. Chris Polk said Maximum Carnage. Jeremy Long from the Long Box and the Huntsville Comic and Pop Culture Expo said Spider-Man Blue. Good pick, homie. Billy Wilburn, B-Dub, said Superior Spider-Man. Tommy Rivethead said Maximum Carnage and Don't Sleep on Round Robin. That story with Nova and Night Thrasher and Punisher by Mark Bagley back in the early 90s. Good stuff. And special shouts out to George Rivera, our old friend Brooks, G-Funk. George Rivera said Kraven's Last Hunt.
Awesome.
Fantastic
awesome
pick. Thank you guys for checking in on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all that and more. And now on Patreon. Thank you guys for checking us out on all those social medias.
Are we on MySpace?
I said medias.
Is anybody on MySpace?
Media
is plural.
No, we're not. But media is a plural. And I said
nobody's
medias.
on MySpace anymore.
Yeah, that does not count as medias, MySpace.
So that was our reaching out to the old media there, the old face pages, etc. Now we're going to talk about our top 5. You might see some overlap there because some great choices, actually. Some great choices.
Really good picks.
It was hard for me not to actually put the man who collects, or the kid that collects Spider-Man, or whatever that, is that what it's called?
Yeah,
Whatever
Amazing
one is,
Spider-Man 248.
It really gets you in the heart, it pulls your heartstrings.
It's a really good one.
Yeah,
it's not on my list either. Neither is the Jean DeWolf. That is a very impactful, that word that we've made up here at PCP.
I think the title is misleading.
Yeah.
It's our top 5. I'm actually going to talk to...
Top 5.
I hope we edit all this out.
What?
So our top 5, what we're going to do at this time is everybody's going to do a rundown 5 to 1, go in reverse order, and maybe we'll interject if we if something rouses us.
Oh yeah, we will.
You
Rockin'
better
Robbie
not
rouses.
interrupt me.
I'm actually going to start with the magnificent Brooks Gibbs.
Oh boy.
Give us your top 5.
Top 5 Spider-Man stories.
Before we get to that, was it hard for you to come up with 5?
Not really.
Okay. He's a very straightforward person. Don't beat around the bush. Give us your top 5, good sir.
Okay, for number 5, I have the Spider-Verse event that happened not too long ago in the Spider-Man books, where basically all this Spider-Men from across the different multiverses had to join together to beat these like interdimensional assholes that basically just killed spider totems or whatever. And it was nice. It had Spider-Ham, Spider-Man Noir,
Oh, that's one we
2099.
forgot. Spider-Ham.
Spider-Ham.
Yeah, it had like all the different Spider-Mans working together. Miles Morales, of course, and it was really funny. It was a fun story.
Your number 4.
Number 4 is this is an interesting one. It's the Ultimate Spider-Man story. It was like a one issue where Jean Grey switched Spider-Man's mind with Wolverine's. So Wolverine spends his whole day going to Peter Parker's high school, and everyone thinks he's freaking out because he's growling at everybody and everything. And meanwhile, Peter Parker is stuck in Wolverine's body, and he's freaking out because he's like all covered in hair, and then Sabretooth comes
He
in.
keeps cutting off bits of himself.
And then Sabretooth comes in and tries to kill him, and he's like, he doesn't know what the hell he's doing. But yeah, that was a really funny story. I like that.
I did not read that. That sounds fantastic.
It's totally like an 80s comedy.
Yeah. It's Freaky Friday with Spider-Man and Wolverine.
Wolverine comes back into his body, and he's like, what did you do? These are new body parts. He keeps cutting off his fingers and hands and shit.
The creepy part of that is when he was hitting on Gwen Stacy the whole time.
Yeah.
No, it's Mary Jane because she's a redhead, like Jean Grey. But, okay, moving on.
Number 3.
Number 3 is Ultimate Spider-Man number 1, the introduction of Miles Morales as the Ultimate Spider-Man. Because when when everyone heard the news they're making a black Spider-Man, they were like, and I was like, I'll let it speak for itself, and I ended up really enjoying it. I really liked Miles Morales as Spider-Man. I like the character, and I'm glad he's still around.
Yeah, absolutely.
Does he get bit by a radioactive spider? How does he get hit?
He gets bit by the genetically altered spider. Kind of.
Yeah, Ultimate
it's
Spider-Man.
the same thing as the
genetics.
original Ultimate Spider-Man. It's like he was bitten by a different kind of spider.
Yeah. Ultimate Spider-Man, the initial one with Peter, came out in like 2001 or so, and by then they realized if you got bit by a radioactive spider, you'd probably just get sick and die.
Yeah,
But a genetically altered spider.
radiation surprisingly does not give you superpowers.
Is that like a warning to the listeners?
Yeah, don't try to irradiate yourself.
What's your number 2, Brooks?
Okay, my number 2 is the Spider-Man during the Civil War crossover.
The first Civil War?
Yes, where he unmasks himself in front of all those people, which was a really big deal.
It's a terrible fucking idea, actually.
for Spider-Man, him willing to put himself out there when he's for so long. But that was kind of the point that Tony Stark was trying to make, was like, this guy, he's willing to come out here, and he's been, so secretive for all this time. So, like, why should anyone else have a problem with it? But, it ends up causing him a lot more problems.
Yeah, and it bolsters Tony's side,
and then he has to
too.
make a deal with the devil, which is never a good thing.
And your number 1, what do you think's the best Spider-Man story of all time?
Well,
in your opinion?
Superior Spider-Man is my favorite story.
It is superior.
Dude, a lot of people love Superior Spider-Man. And what a bizarre take on that. Just the concept is crazy, man.
It's like the idea, it seems really stupid, Dr. Octopus is in Peter Parker's body, but he's been somehow like imbued with Peter's sense of responsibility before Peter vanishes, and but it really actually worked. But the thing that always surprised me about that whole era of Spider-Man is that none of the people who worked with the Avengers or anything were like, man, Spider-Man's being a real asshole lately. It's like, he's usually wisecracking stuff. Octavius Spider-Man didn't do any of that. He just he was all business. But nobody, and he was so arrogant and such a jerk to everybody. But nobody, thought, something's wrong with Spider-Man.
Maybe they just thought he grew up like, oh, he's being fucking serious now. He's got his game face on.
I love how in Superior Spider-Man, Oct created the bots that would patrol the city and alert him if anything had happened.
I like how he had to have his doctorate. It's like, he doesn't have a doctorate? He built Parker Industries. He did a lot of things that Spider-Man never could have done as Peter Parker.
That's a fantastic list, and I think most people agree with you. Superior Spider-Man is a fantastic storyline. It's a great concept. And again, that's why we have social media. Like some people brought it up. I'm interested to hear Robbie. I want to hear your top 5.
My top 5. Number 5 is a favorite of mine from a young laddie.
You were just a kid. You were a young laddie.
My number 5 is Maximum Carnage.
Okay.
I really thought about it. I was like, it's not really the greatest executed Spider-Man story. It's not really written well or nothing, but
it's fucking cool.
It's super cool. And I loved it when I was a kid, and it let me know that in comic books, even in superhero comic books, the stakes can be very, very real. This was one of the first times I read a comic book where these people were out there, Carnage and his family, were slaughtering people, killing people, and you saw it. And yeah, they never showed red blood. It was always black, and it was always off panel, but it was vivid and it was viscerous, and it bothered me. So it still impacts me, and I still remember it. And it had a cool video game, right?
Yeah,
I had an awesome video game. Yeah.
Number 4 happened right before Maximum Carnage. Kind of led to Spider-Man State during Maximum Carnage, which went across 5 different Spider-Man titles. My number 4 is a single issue, Spectacular Spider-Man number 200. Written by J.M. DeMatteis, drawn by Sal Buscema. It was the death of Harry Osborn.
Oh, yeah.
He was the Goblin, had the foil silver cover, and it was Harry's time as the Goblin, his troubled time as the Goblin, came to a head in that issue, and he dies saving Spider-Man's life.
Yeah, he redeems
and
himself.
It's just so effective, and I remember that one, and I've held it with me this entire time.
Doesn't he also save Mary Jane and his son?
Yes.
Is it
Yeah.
Normie,
has
little
a kid?
Normie, yeah.
Little Normie.
Number 3, Kraven's Last Hunt.
I knew you'd have that on there.
Once again by J.M. DeMatteis. Pencils by Mike Zeck. Fantastic art, a great story. Craven defeats Spider-Man, buries him alive for like 2 weeks, and becomes Spider-Man himself to prove that he's better. And then Vermin actually defeats Spider-Man in that story when Spider-Man like pulls himself out of the grave, which amazing symbology right there, right? Symbology. All that stuff is amazing. And then, of course, spoilers, the shock ending when Craven, defeated after he saved Spider-Man from Vermin, kills himself. And that had a lasting impact on Spider-Man as well. And like you said, a lot of the greatest Spider-Man stories, like a lot of people die around Peter.
Oh, yeah.
So they get really sad and tragic. Number 2, I'm going to kind of cheat here, Brooks. You got specific. Number 2, Ultimate Spider-Man, all of it. Especially the Bendis and Bagley stuff. Like, Bendis has always been on Ultimate Spider-Man, but the Bagley stuff, like the first 100 and something issues, amazing stuff. In particular, that Venom arc, that first Venom arc is amazing. The Double Trouble arc with Octavius and Craven, it was the second story they did.
Ultimate 6.
So amazing.
Well, Ultimate 6 was after that, wasn't it?
Yeah, and it's basically the story of Spider-Man from inception to death. The whole thing, and it's amazing. It's just so great. It's ultimate. And number 1, Amazing Fantasy number 15. Because I think this is the greatest superhero origin story ever told.
Yeah, and they do everything in that one book.
In that one book, death is a motivating factor for a lot of superheroes, but Batman knows that he's not responsible for the death of his parents. Superman knows he's not responsible for the death of his planet. Spider-Man's selfishness is directly responsible for Uncle Ben dying. And the way that, especially in that Sam Raimi movie, the way you cheer for Spider-Man when he's telling the wrestling manager off. He's like, that's not my problem. You're like, yeah, you tell him. And then what happens.
But what if he got shot and was never Spider-Man? He just gets shot in the face.
Exactly. But I really still think that Ditko and Lee's Amazing Fantasy number 15 is the greatest Spider-Man story ever written. It's poignant, it's simple, it's amazing, and it hits people on a level that very few superhero stories do.
Yeah, and in the first damn issue, well, it's Amazing Fantasy, but in the introduction of a hero, and to give you that whole thing.
A tiny story in a canceled book that spawned a legend. Think about that.
Yes, we talked about that earlier.
Speaking of legends, Mike, the voice Matthews, I'm curious to hear your top 5 and to see if there's some overlap with these other fine gentlemen.
If I'm going to overlap with anybody, I'm going to overlap with Robbie on one. And he kind of stole my thunder again, but it's a good idea.
Fucking Robbie, I'm sorry. Next time we won't have him on the show.
But number 5, just go ahead and throw it out of the way. It's not really, my top 5's not really in order. It's just kind of all of my favorite 5 Spider-Man stories. So I'm just going to go ahead and throw Kraven's Last Hunt in at number 5. Robbie went into great detail over that. So, and then it was enjoyable.
Yeah, it's a cool story. It's by far the best Craven story.
It's one of the ones that it's one of the first Spider-Man stories we grew up reading. Or at least that's one of them that I did.
That went super dark.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's dark as shit, especially the end.
Because, I mean, I got into the X-Men, and then it was just like, well, you really need to read this because it was before Venom. So, speaking of Venom, I'm going to go ahead and say Amazing Spider-Man 300. So,
Venom.
First appearance of Venom, and then it's great. I mean, he just tortures the crap
I always
out of
thought
Mary Jane.
the Venom was a lot creepier when McFarlane just drew him with the grin.
Yeah, I love
instead of the gaping maw with the tongue
I hate the
and
tongue.
the teeth and all that.
I hate the tongue.
Like I thought he was a lot creepier when it was just that creepy smile.
Venom with the teeth and the smile. That's amazing. The tongue. I always thought the tongue was stupid. People are like, the tongue's so awesome. Like, no, it's stupid.
The tongue is
it's always
so
got
awesome.
green slime all over it.
Going to number 3, which would be Spider-Man 1 through 5, the Tom McFarlane run. Torment. Lizard starts killing people. He's possessed by Calypso. And
How do you like that art style? Because I always loved that, his artwork.
I liked it back then in the day, but now it's just kind of.
I hated it.
Did you like it back then?
No.
Yeah, I liked it back
It's
then.
definitely his style.
No. My favorite Spider-Man artist back then was Bagley.
Ed Begley Jr.?
Yeah.
the actor.
Bagley was doing amazing at the time.
He was after Spider.
He was after
McFarlane
on Amazing.
Because Larson was, but
oh yeah, I forgot about Larson.
Yeah, Larson was terrible.
No, he's got to put the black suit back on, and he just comes out of the room, and he scares the crap out of Mary Jane, and she starts freaking out, and he's got to take the mask off, and it's like, it's me, and it's like, I know you hate this suit because of what Venom did to you, but I have to put this back on, and it's it's black suit Spider-Man. So
Yeah.
which is going to what number am I on, 3 or 2? Number 2. I am going to go with Back in Black. When Aunt May gets shot, Aunt May gets shot by a sniper. Supposed to hit Peter. Hits Aunt May instead. And I just went blank on it. Peter goes crazy. He's mad, he's upset. He goes back to the black suit because it's serious. It's not funny. There's no humor in it. I'm going to find out who shot my aunt. And Kingpin did it. He finds out it's Kingpin. He goes to jail. Matt Murdock is trying to talk him out of this. It's like, no, don't worry about it. He's like, screw it, I'm going to jail. Matt calls Punisher up and is like, hey, I need you to go to jail to take care of Peter, to watch his back. And goes in there, starts fighting everybody, confronts the Kingpin, takes the mask off, and it's just like, Spider-Man's not kicking your ass, Peter Parker is.
What's your number 1?
What's your number 1?
Let's go Secret Wars number 8. Why not? Is it 7? Is it 7? Is it 8?
Costume?
First when he first gets the black costume.
Yeah, that's
you like that costume?
You want to call that a Spider-Man story? That's fine, I guess.
No, really.
You could just say the Alien costume saga. That would work.
No, that works too. No, I was gonna say Amazing. I had this whole Human Torch thing I was gonna do, but it kind of got thrown out the window.
Oh, my bad.
But I was originally gonna say Amazing Spider-Man number 1. I think that the
Fantastic Four and the Chameleon story.
Yeah. And I think it sets up just a great run. And Spider-Man's all like, I'm going to join the team. I'm going to try out. And he's like, no, And it's just that relationship between the Fantastic Four and Peter Parker.
Whether the Fantastic Four, not the Fantastic Five.
Right, but I'm just saying, it's that relationship that they do. It throughout the whole entire years is essentially Johnny's his best friend. Because I was going to try to tie in Amazing Spider-Man 657. So I guess that's on my number 6. It's the death of the Human Torch. And
this whole thing's been derailed.
Yeah.
I would say I don't really have a top 5. I'm not a big my top 5, I think some of it echoes what you guys already have. My number 5 was going to be Best of Enemies, which is Spectacular Spider-Man number 200, which is the death of Harry Osborn. And again, it hits close to home because that's his best friend, you know what I'm saying?
And you read comics in the early 90s.
Yeah, and it's redemption for Harry.
Oh, yeah,
because he does save
also
Peter.
The whole story, like, throughout the first part of the story, he's just fucking with Peter hard because he knows, he's like, I know you're Spider-Man. And he's just fucking with him. He's playing mind games with him. And so it makes it like he has to struggle with, suppressing his hate for Peter to realize, that Peter does care about him and is trying to do the right thing.
Yeah, Peter's not a bad guy, and I think there's that ongoing relationship with him and Harry, and that they're friends, but there's a rivalry. I'm not just as Goblin or as an enemy for love or whatever, trying to win the same girl or whatever. But there's so much going on with their relationship. It's important, and when he passes away, man, that's a pretty crucial thing. And a lot of it, like you said, Spider-Man. There's a lot of death in Spider-Man, and ultimately defines Peter. Number 4 is going to be Maximum Carnage. How can I have Maximum Carnage? And that, of course, is Spider-Man 378, Spectacular Spider-Man 201, and like 30 other comics. It goes on for a while. Awesome. I love the symbiote. I love Venom. And then to see Carnage come from that, it's so badass. And you not only have all the power that comes with that combination of what isn't blood in the symbiote costume, but you're right. Cassidy there is not right in the head. And he's almost unpredictable. He's very Jokerish and something new for Spider-Man and just terrifying. And what a cool cover. And you go back and read it like Peter, like Robbie said, it's not the best written thing, but the concept itself is awesome. And I think that's executed well. And the costume is badass. Number 3 is going to be Amazing Spider-Man number 90, which is the Gweth.
The Gweth of Gwen Gwaithy.
The death of Captain Stacy.
Captain.
So that's somebody, again, who Peter looked up to as almost like a dad. He didn't have a dad figure. And which was the heart, and this comes back later on.
The heart.
Is that he's like, as he's dying, and this took for a while for him to die, because it goes on for a lot of issues. But when he finally dies, kicks the bucket in 90, he's like, Peter, look out for Gwen. Take care of her. Well, Peter fails miserably. And my number 2, which is Spider-Man number 121/122, that's the death of Gwen Stacy. So that's one thing that, I read the comics obviously later on, but can you imagine reading that, like going and picking up your your monthly
being like
comic?
a 6-year-old?
Yeah, being a little kid. And that was, how long was Gwen Stacy a part of his life?
Yeah.
And for Gwen to actually die, and it was a pretty fucking big deal. So that's my number 2. My number 1, and finally, and this is the first time and last time I'll ever say this, so you guys can write this shit down. I agree with Robbie. My number 1 is Amazing Fantasy number 15, which is one of the best origin stories of all comics. I mean, you have him bitten by the spider, and then you have the death of Uncle Ben. It's just a great all-in-one in just that one issue. And it's also got one of the most fantastic covers of all time that's been cloned. There've been variations of that cover. It's such a great book. And what a great introduce.
Why did no one choose a Clone Saga in the top 5?
I do like the Clone Sagas, but if we had a top 10, you might get like Ben Reilly or somebody in there.
No, you wouldn't.
I don't know. Probably not. Probably not.
Why
no
maximum clonage?
Clone.
God damn it. So that was my top 5. So I think everybody had similar, but if you're listening to this and you watch Spider-Man on the big screen or watch TV or whatever, you don't read a lot of Spider-Man comics. There's so many fantastic comics out there and a lot of great trades. So I highly suggest maybe we'll link some trades down below when we put this up on the site.
Back in Black.
And then local store, there's a comic book store that Robbie works at. Go check him out. Talk to him. Maybe he can put you in the direction of some awesome Spider-Man books.
Clone.
I work there too, man.
Oh yeah, Mike Matthews also works there.
Clone.
Brooks does not
clone.
work there.
I've never heard of this place.
Clone.
But now we got our top 5 out of the way. Let's and Robbie, Robbie, shut the fuck up, Robbie. So we all appreciate you tuning in. Pop Culture Philosophers. If you're subscribed to the channel, you can check out more than just the podcast videos and etc. PopCulturePhilosophers.com. If you're on the website, and you enjoy the show, you can always check us out. We're on iTunes. We're on Android. You can we have RSS feeds. And then next episode, we're going to talk about New York movies. So movies set in New York with the backdrop of New York. The New York, the Big Apple, the city's so nice, they named it twice. And it's really more than just a city. It's like a living, you know what I'm saying? It's an organism in itself. And so what a great place to make a movie in, right?
And you know who lives in New York? Spider-Man.
He does live in New
You
York.
know who else lives in New York?
Clones.
Ben Reilly.
God damn.
You know what Ben Reilly is? He's Scarlet Spider. He's a
Where's
hero
the button to mute you? I can't
I can't reach it.
So we appreciate you tuning in. Check us out. Same Spider-Man time. Same Spider-Man channel. Well, you don't. I mean, we're on. You can subscribe to us, and it just will show up on your device.
On your doorstep.
So we appreciate you guys tuning in. We'll catch you next time.
Holla, holla.